So today, I'd like to go over the do's and don'ts for bridge pose. So these are the things you need to keep in mind to do it correctly, not get injured, and get the benefit out of this pose. So in bridge pose, you want to make sure that your hips, your feet are exactly parallel, toes facing forward, and right in line with your hips. Your shoulders, and your shoulder blades in particular, your scapula, are pulled together in the back, opening up your chest. The way that you come off the floor, the do's. So remember the chart that I showed you. Make sure that you're writing down these do's on that chart so that you can send them back to me and you have them down. So the first thing you want to do when you're coming off the floor in a bridge pose is lift the pubic bone up and roll the ball into the belly button. And then you're going to lift a little higher, rolling one vertebrae off at a time, and bring that ball underneath your sternum in between your ribs. And then finally, you're going to lift your pubic bone as high as possible and leave room for a tennis ball underneath your chin. Of course, when you normally do this in a class, you don't have a tennis ball, you just do it remembering a virtual tennis ball being in all those spots. Then you may want to interlace your fingers behind you, pulling your scapula together, which will allow your chest to open even further and lifting up. Okay? Make sure, take your hands apart now and separate your scapula, rolling down one vertebrae at a time, passing that place where the ribs come together underneath the sternum, rolling that ball into the belly button, dropping it as low as possible, and finally bringing your pubic bone into neutral pelvis. So those are the things to keep in mind when you do a bridge pose. You never want to flatten your neck against the floor. So even though you're holding that tennis ball there, you want to keep that cervical spine, that neck area, still curved. So I'll do it one more time without the ball, rolling up one vertebrae at a time, all the way to the top. Some people like to hold your heels here. I find that's a lot of strain on the kneecaps, so I don't mind if they're a little bit further out and your hands are just pulling down toward your heels. But you've got a curve underneath your neck while your chin is still holding onto a ball, or virtual ball underneath. Release the hands, roll down one vertebrae at a time. Good. Let's look at the don'ts for that position. So I'm going to show you the don'ts, and you're going to make a note of them on your chart, okay? Okay, so you now have the do's and don'ts. I don't give you the don'ts. You kind of have to interpret what I did and figure out what the don'ts are and send it in.